How to detect if a network is blocking outgoing ports. How do I confirm if my network is blocking outgoing ports? I'm having issues accessing services on servers running on ports other than port 80 and 443. For example, I cannot SSH into any of my servers where SSH is running on ports 22, 2222, 32415, etc. Moreover, other programs that I need for work are failing, such as openvpn. Ideally, I'd like to determine a list of the ports that the network is not blocking. I'm on a public access point at a library.
TL drive. Run this command to test a specific port, fast. Run this command to test popular ports, slow. Run this command to test all ports, extremely slow. Source, this URL. Solution explained. To test if a given outgoing port is blocked on your network by some malicious middlebox, you can try to telnet into a server that has a service running on that port. In this example, we use portquiz.net, which is a public service designed for this purpose. It uses iptable's NAT table and has all TCP ports open. Note that the first command exited immediately with the message, connected to portquiz.net, which indicates that the outgoing port 443 is not being blocked by the network. The second command, however, says, unable to connect to remote host column connection timed out. This shows that unless there's an issue at portquiz.net, the outgoing port 22 is probably being blocked on your network. You can take this a step further using nmap to get a list of all the ports that are not blocked by the network. For example,
This question is a bit vague and thus difficult to answer, and ironically something I hit my head against this morning. It is impossible to fully do this without the help of your ISP. The first thing to do is to check your router is allowing all this through. That is the default state for a typical SOHO router though. Depending on your router, you might be able to run thump on it looking at the external interface, e.g. if it's running DDWRT, and see if packets are leaving your network. If you can't do this, your options are very limited here. A switched on ISP may be able to tell you if they are seeing the packets entering their network, but I would not expect this for your run-of-the-mill home user connection. Alternatively, if you can disconnect everything extraneous from your network, you might be able to get a hint of if traffic is leaving it based on the PPP interface packet count, or looking at the lights flashing on the modem/router when you attempt to make connections. Next, if you are able to get onto a server/virtual server which you know is not having connectivity issues, and which has its own real IP address or is answering on the server, you can log into that remote box and use thump on the interface to check if it is receiving packets from your machine. If not, then packets are being dropped. If they are being received, then it could be a firewall or issue on the return path. If you have access to a remote, unfirewalled server, you can do a thump on it while using nmap or netcat to generate traffic to that server and seeing what thump sees.
I think it is pretty forward to test if your ISP is blocking any ports or your router firewall is blocking it. Say for example your ISP is blocking port 22, you try to connect to a server which had port 22 open, and you get a connection timeout. Now open port 22 on some other computer on your local network. If you are able to connect to that port on your local network, then your ISP is blocking your port 22.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.